Hello, advocates, and welcome to our training video on understanding the federal legislative process. I'm Julienne Verdi, Executive Director of the Alliance for Headache Disorders Advocacy and the Headache Alliance. I'm thrilled to guide you through the intricacies of how laws are made and how you, as an advocate, play a crucial role in this process. As an advocate for headache disorders, your voice matters. By understanding the legislative process, you empower yourself to make a lasting impact on policies that directly affect the headache disorders community. During Headache on the Hill, we typically advocate for either the introduction, co-sponsoring, or passage of a bill, or to allocate federal funds towards headache disorders research or programming. Sometimes we also engage Congress to help us to try to put pressure on another government agency, like the Social Security Administration, National Institutes of Health, or Department of Education, for example, to do something differently. In this training, we'll give a brief background of the three main things we advocate for: bills, the appropriations or budgetary process, and Dear Colleague letters. Let's kick things off by understanding the fundamental process of how a bill becomes a law. It's like a journey that a bill takes through the halls of Congress, and each step of that journey is critical. And at each step, there's an opportunity for advocates to make a difference. A fundamental concept in our legislative system is bicameralism, meaning a bill must be introduced and passed through both the House of Representatives and the Senate to become law. Here's where the journey begins. The first step in the legislative process is the drafting and introduction of a bill. Sometimes a legislator gets an idea for a bill from advocates bringing their attention to a specific problem or solution. That individual lawmaker, or sometimes a group of lawmakers, come together and draft the text of the bill. Bills are identified by unique numbers such as HR for House bills and S for Senate bills, followed by a number. For example, HR 123 would be a House Bill 123. These numbers help in tracking and referring to the bill. Whereas if you saw S123, that would be Senate 123. The lawmaker who introduces the bill is the sponsor of the bill, and others who sign on in support are co-sponsors. The more and ideally bipartisan co-sponsors a bill has, the more momentum it has to potentially pass, which is why we are often advocating for your representative to sign on as a co-sponsor to a bill. Once introduced, the bill is assigned to a committee related to its subject matter. Sometimes it's assigned to more than one committee. Committees are like specialized teams of lawmakers who scrutinize and refine a bill. In committees, lawmakers hold hearings on the bill. They debate, revise, and mark up or amend the bill. To move out of committee and progress in the process, it must pass a vote of the committee members. The committee process is very important, and knowing what committees your legislators are on can be very useful, especially if we know that a specific bill that we're advocating for happens to be in a committee where your legislator sits. If the bill successfully passes through the committee vote, it will then move to the floor of the respective chamber for further consideration. This is where all members of that chamber get a chance to weigh in, offer amendments, and eventually vote. If it does not pass the committee vote or never gets a vote in committee, the bill is said to die in committee. If the bill passes through committee and then received a floor vote for the entire House or Senate to vote on the bill, and a majority vote in that chamber in support of the bill, it is said to have passed that specific chamber and must then go through the same process in the other chamber to progress in the process. As we've discussed, in committee and on the floor of the full chamber, members may make changes to a bill. So even though there could have been two identical bills introduced in the House and the Senate at roughly the same time, by the time they actually pass through both houses, they have fundamental differences. If the House and Senate versions differ, a conference committee composed of members from both chambers convenes to reconcile the differences. It's a harmonizing act to create a unified bill. Most major legislation goes to a conference committee. So again, members from each chamber form a conference committee and meet to work out the differences. The committee is usually made up of senior members who are appointed by the presiding officers of the committee that originally dealt with the bill. The representatives from each of those chambers work to maintain their version of the bill. If the conference committee reaches a compromise, it prepares a written conference report, which is submitted to each chamber. The conference report must then be approved by both the House and the Senate. Once both chambers agree on the final version, the bill then goes to the president. If the president signs it, voila, the bill becomes law. Now, what happens if only one chamber passes the bill? In that case, the bill doesn't progress further in the legislative process because, again, under bicameralism, it needs approval from both the House and the Senate before a bill could become a law. And if the president vetoes a bill or doesn't sign it within 10 days while Congress is in session, the bill doesn't become law unless Congress overrides the veto with a 2/3 majority in both chambers. Now we're going to switch gears to appropriations, which is a fancy word for the budgeting process. And it is a critical process that shapes how federal funds are allocated each year. Imagine the federal budget as a colossal financial plan guiding the allocation of funds for various government activities and agencies. This process, known as appropriations, is how Congress makes the plan a reality. The Committee on Appropriations in both the House and the Senate are pivotal players in this process. They're responsible for crafting spending bills and ensuring funds are, you hope, allocated wisely. Within these committees, subcommittees focus on specific areas like healthcare, education, or defense. And each subcommittee plays a unique role in shaping the budget for its designated sector. The process unfolds in stages, beginning with the president's budget request. You'll hear this referred to as the president's budget. This request serves as a blueprint. Appropriations bills are then introduced, considered in committee, debated on the floor, and reconciled in a conference committee, just as we discussed for other types of bills. But sometimes Congress doesn't pass all appropriations bills before the fiscal year starts. And if you've been watching the news over the last few years, you know that this is becoming more of the norm. In this case, a continuing resolution is used to fund the government temporarily and avoid a government shutdown. It keeps existing programs running at specific funding levels until a new appropriations bill is passed. So what's the role of advocacy in appropriations? Here's where your advocacy can truly make a difference. By engaging with members of Congress, particularly those on appropriations committees, you can shape funding priorities. Your voice amplifies the importance of adequate resources for headache disorders research, awareness, and support, and can mean the difference between a cut in a program budget or an increase. And sometimes we're not just advocating for a dollar amount, but also specific appropriations report language. Appropriations report language is Congress's way to provide additional guidance or directives on how it expects its funds to be used. So this language can really shape the implementation of funded programs. The final topic we're going to discuss in this training is Dear Colleague letters. Dear Colleague letters are an essential aspect of communication and building support among lawmakers for a bill or issue. Imagine a letter penned by one lawmaker to their colleagues. These Dear Colleague letters serve to inform and rally support for specific issues. They are a powerful tool for building consensus. Sometimes this is in support of a bill, an appropriations funding request, or even a letter to a federal agency or a committee to request an investigation, issuance of a guidance, or compelling an agency to change the way they're doing something. Advocates, this is where your influence can shine. Encouraging lawmakers to sign on to Dear Colleague letters amplifies the impact of your cause. The more signatures, and again, bipartisan is always the goal, a letter garners, the greater the momentum behind the legislative, appropriations, or other issue. The letter on your screen now is actually a letter we advocated in support of in 2023, which was ultimately circulated by Representative Cori Bush and addressed the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the Department of Education. And we advocated for a guidance memorandum in this letter confirming the eligibility of children with severe headache disorders for special education services. I hope this brief training on the different types of asks was helpful to you in understanding the legislative process. Thank you for dedicating your time to understand the nuances of federal advocacy. Your commitment fuels our collective efforts for change. And don't worry, this is just one step in the process of training. There's going to be lots of opportunities for you to continue to learn how this all works. We encourage you to listen in through the rest of the training programs, attend the live trainings where we'll go over the specific asks for the year. And you can always reach out to me with any questions you have about any of the things that we're going over today. Thank you and welcome again to Headache on the Hill. We're so excited to have you.